Hello and welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna and that is Courtney.
Hello.
Before we get into our case for this week, let's remind you of what you'll find in our description and show notes. You will always find links to our social media if you want to follow us over there and get episode updates and some memes and breaking news and stuff like that. You can also find links to our Patreon if you want to join our Patreon and get some bonus episodes. We should be recording an episode as a bonus tonight, so we're going to have that up in the next week or so. So if you're on our Patreon, definitely check out the upcoming bonus episode. And if you're not on, you can always get access to those by joining. So we want to thank a couple people that joined our Patreon this week. Thank you to Tanya, Jennifer, and Brittany.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. So I can't think of anything else for some reason. That's all the business I have.
Let's go.
I like to keep it short and sweet. So let's jump into our next case. We're still doing insanity pleas. And tonight we're going to talk about the very first U.S. case that used the insanity plea for Daniel Sickles.
It's old-timey.
God, I love old-timey cases.
I know. You're very good at it.
It's so fun. Like, it just feels, I can visualize it. It feels like I'm seeing like Deadwood or something, you know?
Yeah, there were a lot of different rules.
Everything was
for
different.
What you were allowed to have with you, do.
Oh, yeah.
Just a few.
So I like imagining those kind of things. It seems more like a story. For some reason, it makes it a little bit more cartoonish and a little bit easier to handle some of the details.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do get a little bit heartbroken and grossed out and yeah.
Well, you don't see a lot of people that just like chop people's legs off or something anymore, just like on the street. Whereas old-timey, you could have that happen. It's just a little different time.
And then flee the state and nobody would ever find you.
No one will ever find you because you're like 20 miles away, but it's a different county.
Right.
And you still see your other family that you've created. It's a whole thing.
But in this case, he doesn't even leave because he doesn't have to, which we will definitely get into.
It's insane. It's insane.
So Daniel Sickles was born in 1918 in New York City to Susan and George Sickles. His father was a patent lawyer and a politician. So, of course, he had very high standards for his son, and he obviously hoped that Daniel would follow in his footsteps. After high school, Daniel learned the print trade and went to NYU. Everybody says that he was very ambitious, he was focused, and he was also somewhat of a ladies' man.
This is like Little Women times too, right? So
I feel
like a ladies' man.
Yeah. It's like the last 5 cases, I feel like we've been like, and he's a ladies' man. It's like everyone keeps saying that. It's the insane people that always get all the ladies, I guess.
It's charisma.
At NYU, he met Professor DuPont, who helped him get a scholarship and became one of his mentors. Daniel actually moved in with the DuPont family, where he met one of the children named Teresa DuPont Baggioli. So Teresa was living in that house, but she was actually the daughter of a wealthy and well-known Italian singing teacher named Antonio Baggioli. And her mother was Maria DuPont, who was the daughter of Lorenzo DuPont, the noted music teacher who had actually worked as Mozart's librettist, which makes me feel like they're the fanciest family.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. They're hanging with Mozart.
Yeah.
They're intellectuals.
Mm-hmm. High society here.
Yes.
Teresa was actually just a baby when Daniel came to live with the DuPont family. And after staying for a while, he left to pursue a career as a lawyer, while Teresa was actually still a child. He did remain close with the family after moving out, and he continued to study French and Italian with them.
Well,
I don't know how he did that, though.
Yeah, he's not there anymore, but
right.
He continues to study and there are no phones.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but apparently he did. That's
Via
what everybody
email?
says. Right? Carrier pigeon.
Well, she was a No, a singer. Never mind.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
I don't get it.
We don't know how old-timey works.
I don't.
He got a job at the law office of Benjamin Butler and was admitted to the bar in 1846.
He's kind of able to do whatever he wants, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe he learned the print trade, but overall he intended to be a lawyer. So he was still studying and stuff. He kind of, whatever he puts his mind to, he can do. He's always that person, it seems like.
Yeah.
Only a year later, he was elected as a member of the New York State Assembly at only 29 years old. And he'd only been a lawyer for a year. So things were moving fast for him. In 1851, Daniel reconnected with his old family friend, Teresa, from, of course, the DuPont house that he used to live in. Teresa was a well-educated, outgoing, and beautiful girl. She was extremely bright, and she could speak several languages.
She was also a ladies' man.
Everybody in old-timey was ladies' man.
Everybody. They are knocking down the doors.
So they began a romantic relationship, even though Daniel was 33 years old at this time, and Teresa was only 15.
This is just of the times.
I know. That's what everybody's going to say, but I'm sorry. That's just, it's creepy to me. He's a pedophile.
It's creepy.
She's half his age. And, you know, there are some disputes about his birth year. So some people say that he was born in 1825. But the thing is, he was known to claim that he was younger. And I think that it was because he married someone that was 15. All of a sudden, he was like, oh, I'm actually a few years younger than I say I am.
I'm only 20.
Right.
I get it.
It seemed like to him it was more acceptable. Of course it is. So even as we're like, well, it was of the time, obviously it wasn't that of the time because he knew it was wrong and he knew he should say he's younger.
That's what we call pre-planning the crime.
Right. Her family refused to give their consent to the marriage. But, of course, the couple decided to wed in a secret civil ceremony on September 17th, 1852. After learning about the civil ceremony, Teresa's family decided that they would give their blessing. So the couple married again, this time with a proper ceremony and full celebration. And it's disturbing to me because it seems like the only thing that the family needed to make things okay was the civil ceremony. Like once they're like, oh, we're getting married. Okay, it's done. They're like, all right, well, I guess you're doing this, so we're cool with it.
One less person in the house. Sure.
Maybe. But it's still like you were basically giving the okay for a pedophile to be with your daughter. Like, it's disturbing.
Yeah, basically.
So the thing that's important about this, though, is 7 months later, their only child, Laura, was born.
I know where the blessing comes in.
So right now it makes a lot more sense. That's like, okay, well, you're having a baby. You can't have a baby out of wedlock. Because at first when I read that, I was really upset with the family. Like, no, you have to fight for her. She's a child, you know, bring her home and say, no, you can't be with him, you know?
And I guess at this point, at least he's successful. He's not somebody who's considered not successful.
Right.
So let's go ahead and give our 7-month pregnant 15-year-old to this guy.
Right. And you have to think, if it was a different person that wasn't successful, that's a good point. Would they have been like, okay, let's send you to somewhere like a convent for the next 7 months and then have the baby and come back and be like, oh, she was studying Italian and now she's back. And then the baby goes to adoption. It would have been something like that if he wasn't high society. Yeah. So early on, it became clear that Daniel prioritized work and other women over being home with his family. He was known to keep mistresses and often visit sex workers. Daniel was appointed by President Franklin Pierce to Secretary of the U.S. Legation in London. And I didn't really know anything about this because apparently it's an outdated position, but it's basically a diplomat position that was a step lower than an ambassador. And then eventually after World War II, there was no longer legations and it just became embassy ambassadors and stuff like that.
Probably didn't have an office.
No. He just had, you know,
a business card.
Right.
Okay.
It's like, this is what I do. So instead of taking his wife to live in London, he took a woman named Fanny White with him. And Fanny was a madam and an owner of a really well-known New York brothel. He even actually brought Fanny White to an event with Queen Victoria and presented her to the Queen using a different name. It was very scandalous for the few people that were like, hey, I know that lady. There was a lot of whispers.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Because everyone knows he's married. Fanny's not his wife. Even just that, not knowing who she is. I mean, a lot of people, of course, still judge sex workers very harshly. And it's awful. But even back then, it's way worse. So even if nobody knows that she is a sex worker, people know that she's not his wife. But then you add the fact that she's a madam on top of it. That's so scandalous. That's crazy. I can't imagine.
It's bizarre to me.
This is perfect makings for a movie is what I keep thinking. And that's why I can visualize it, of like him traveling with her and the wife sitting at home at a desk writing him letters, and he's just having the time of his life with Fanny, in London. I can see it all. He returned to the U.S. in 1855 when he was elected as a member of the New York State Senate, and he held the position until 1861. In 1856, Daniel decided that since he was a senator, he should move his whole family to Washington, D.C.
I guess. And I'm wondering, does anybody know us there?
Right. But I don't know. I mean, people knew he had a wife. Maybe they hadn't seen her much, but it seems like they were pretty active socially, which, later on they become more and more, involved in Washington society. But I think people knew her, which makes it so strange that he would take other women out in public because they were known to be social. So I think people knew who she was and just accepted that he was going to do what he wanted to do.
He just does it so publicly.
Yeah, the ball's on him.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was thinking. So once they moved to Washington, D.C., the Sickles family quickly became very popular in Washington social circles. Teresa was extremely kind and charming, so she won over new acquaintances very quickly. People were really taken with how beautiful she was. She was well educated. And like I said, she spoke several languages. So people really gravitated to her. Her and her husband, Daniel, became quite involved in political society and all the important social circles. The couple attended most of the major social events of the day. The Sickles also hosted formal dinners every Thursday evening, and then Teresa had a standing Tuesday brunch at their home for various high society ladies.
That sounds fun.
I know.
The Thursday night is like the party in Little Women. They're all dressed up and they're dancing around, right? And Lori's there and all that. That's fun. And then Tuesday morning is like the sewing circle, sit around.
Right.
Chisme.
Yes,
fun.
Exactly.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, but I mean, they were known as a power couple. So like Thursday night, everyone who's anyone who's important in Washington are at their home just remarking about, how solid they are or how beautiful she is or how powerful. Like they're taking in what a powerful couple they are. It's kind of crazy. And then on Tuesday, she's like establishing herself as a prominent woman in Washington. Teresa gained a reputation for being an extremely gracious host and making her guests feel at home. Harper's Weekly even wrote about her new status in Washington society and her talent for entertaining guests. So it wasn't just local people. I mean, it was in the press that she threw the best dinner parties, that everyone knew her, or important women are becoming friends with her. It was a housewife situation,
When I looked up that article, the picture of her is just a drawing. And she looks pretty, but it's funny. It's like, oh yeah, here's, just a drawing of her.
Yep, that's all we got.
That's all we got.
The Sickles had also become good friends with Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln. But when they weren't entertaining guests and playing this power couple role, Dan's work and infidelity often kept him away from home. Daniel continued to have affairs after moving from New York to Washington, and he seriously neglected his wife and his family. So Teresa spent most of her time alone. It became well known that Daniel kept company with local sex workers, and there were many people that judged Daniel harshly for bringing sex workers into his chambers at work.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be a politician back then? If this is what you are able to do. It's lawless. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, like if the worst thing that happens is someone judges you for it, like, oh, there's some whispers, people are like, hey, he's fucking sex workers at work, then why not do it? I mean, that's not that bad, you know?
Go to HR.
Right.
I mean, they're saying everyone knows.
Yeah.
It is well known.
It was an open secret that it was just, yeah, he brings women to his work.
And they're going to obviously question whether she knew. Yeah, she knows.
Right. It's unclear if she knows, but I would assume she did. But most sources say like, oh, well, we don't know if she knew. If everybody else knew, if everybody else was whispering about it, it would come back to her. You know it would.
I mean, she might not know their names,
right?
But she knows they exist.
Something's going on. She's aware. But if she was aware of the infidelity, she didn't really talk about it with anyone. I think that it must have been kind of embarrassing. Or she just kind of wanted to keep this front that they were a power couple.
She's supposed to stay quiet. She's an old-timey woman.
Yeah. But she just had to live with it, and it's just very sad. She was like, well, I know this is going on. We assume that she knew, and then she just has to keep going like nothing's happening.
Pretty much.
And know that people are talking about her when she walks down the street, you know?
So all she can do is set a really nice table and a brunch, and then the meanest thing they can say is her husband cheats on her, but she puts out a great spread.
Right. We like her. Mm-hmm. We think she's awesome.
Yes.
She throws a great party. But hey, her husband's kind of a dick. You know? I'm sure she could live with that, it seems like.
Yeah.
Also, everybody's husband was probably a dick, you know?
She was also 15.
Yeah. At this time, she was a few
She's
years
probably like
older,
20 now,
but it was
25.
still just like very young. One of the influential Washington socialites that she met through her husband was Philip Barton Key. Philip was the district attorney for the District of Columbia and the son of poet Francis Scott Key, who composed the Star-Spangled Banner, which is, to me, deep cut trivia. Like, I've heard the name, you know, but that's something that would come up on Trivial Pursuit or something.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to lock that one away for the championship.
Philip was a widower and somewhat of a ladies' man.
Shocking.
Since he had become newly single, he was always out on the town, trying to meet women and dating around. He was described as, quote, the handsomest man in all Washington society by notorious Washington socialite Mrs. Clement Clay.
I trust her.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the gossip lady of the time.
The Leona Helmsley. No.
I was trying to search for who.
Hedy Lamarr.
Got it.
She's heady.
After initially meeting through Daniel, Teresa and Philip began a separate friendship. Initially, their interactions were very innocent, and they would just kind of have conversations whenever they happened to run into each other in the street. It wasn't like they planned it. They didn't really make any plans to get together. It was like, oh, I see you. You're walking around. I'll stop and chat. But after a while, Philip began going out of his way to run into Teresa, and he would attend all the parties in hopes of spending time with her. Romantic interest soon developed on both sides, and Teresa would invite Philip over to their home while Daniel was out of town.
And honestly, Daniel should be fine with this because at least someone's there,
right,
hanging out with her.
Yeah, if he's not going to be there
at home,
it's not like he's just out of town for work. He's out of town just living the single life, even though he's married. In my mind, he can't say shit. Of course, it's old-timey, so there's double standards, as deep as you can go. But to me, it's just like, well, you're doing it. I mean, he has no room to talk. And he's been doing it for years with so many people. So for her to just, connect with one person, sorry, but he's still the asshole here. That's my take.
I like your take.
To avoid being found out, they soon stopped meeting at the Sickles home, and Philip began renting a house in a neighborhood on the outskirts of DC so they wouldn't be seen.
The original cheap motel.
Right?
Yeah, it's dirty.
Even though they were trying to be discreet, people started noticing that Philip was absent from many professional obligations. However, he was conveniently always at the events that Teresa attended.
This is the sewing circle at work.
Oh, yeah.
Talking.
They're like putting together a spreadsheet of where he is and where he isn't. Like, is Teresa there? Let's do a pie chart,
Old-timey Excel.
Definitely. Over time, it became common knowledge in Washington that Teresa and Philip were definitely having an affair.
I have a quote here from Teresa. She says, more colorfully, she put it another way. I did what is usual for a wicked woman to do.
No.
Which tells us a lot of
That's so sad.
This was way worse for her than it was going to be for him. She's going to take the brunt. I mean, she looks at herself as wicked for cheating on him.
That's so
Which means
sad.
like she's going to hell. There's no heaven. All of it, right? It's very deep. When
Eternal
you break that
damnation.
Apart. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so disappointing because I'm sure he didn't think the same thing. He's like, oh, I messed up. But also I'm going to continue messing up, Well,
he's also probably going to blame the man for, coming, taking his beautiful woman.
Right.
And all this. He hates her too for it, but, it's going to be easier later. And then she's just usual what the wicked woman typically often would do, right? That's what you think. It's Eve. Yeah. Damn Eve, that wicked woman.
It's so
deep.
sad.
I know, right?
At the time, Daniel Sickles seemed to be the only person in the city who was unaware of his wife's romantic relationship with Philip.
I believe that because I don't think he's even in town enough to be paying attention.
No.
He's home sleeping and then leaving the next day, if anything. He's not spending time.
I 100% think there's no way he knew. To me, I think he was so preoccupied that he has all these other women on the side that he's got to keep organized or whatever, keep scheduled. I don't know what he was doing. But when you're putting that much energy and effort into your own side pieces, multiple side pieces, you don't have time to figure out, oh, how's everything going at home? He doesn't care. If he cared, he wouldn't be doing that.
Maybe this is old-timey sex addiction.
Maybe. We don't know. But that does make sense,
yeah.
Eventually, after not knowing about the affair for quite a while, someone sent Daniel an anonymous letter informing him of what was going on with his wife. The anonymous writer said, quote, I do assure you, Philip has as much use of your wife as you do. Which in and of itself is so infuriating that they say use.
Yeah.
Use of your wife?
Yeah.
Oh,
they did say that.
This is the part of old-timey cases that I hate.
He was a ladies' man.
Boil.
He was a ladies' man.
Boo.
Well, here's the thing, though. What's funny is this tells you that the person writing it, or just people in general, I guess, didn't know. They must assume that they were still having sex or something, right? Because he's banging everybody else. He has no use for his wife. Therefore, Philip has no use for your wife, but he sees it as the other way.
Yeah. The whole
just
thing
they're
is
together
upsetting.
Doesn't mean
referring to it as use, I think, is just the hardest thing for me to swallow.
That is hard
use
for you.
of anyone. It's another human being. You don't call it that.
I agree.
It's called fucking. I'm just kidding.
It's called fucking. Put that on a t-shirt and sell it. We're going to cross-stitch that one tonight.
Right? So initially, Daniel investigated the allegations on his own. And when he was convinced and felt like he had enough evidence, he confronted Teresa about it.
He's got a monocle.
right?
He's just
I'm going to get to the bottom of
he's
this.
pouring over drawings,
Right?
not photos, just drawings.
She initially denied everything, but after he started presenting her with more and more information, she admitted to the infidelity.
She should have just denied. Just deny.
It's the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. Just keep going with it. If you stick with it, it works eventually.
What is his evidence?
Who
All
knows?
the photographs.
Drawings.
That's what I keep coming back to. I'm like, you can just deny this.
Right.
Until he sees you. You can just, it never happened. You are crazy.
It's not like today where you're like, okay, I've got your GPS. I've got social media. I can like look into this person. There's nothing he's going on except for this one letter. Maybe he can ask around to be like, do you guys know about this?
There's only one person you can ask, and I don't think they're going to tell you, but it's his horse. It's the only person at this point. Mr. Ed is going to be the only one we can rely on. Where have you been? Well, you see, I took him here.
We've been traveling around to the outskirts of D.C.
Yeah, exactly. The outskirts of D.C. I just went 20 miles.
We've got an apartment there.
They have no idea where we are.
Oh, geez.
This is fun.
After she admitted to everything, Daniel made Teresa write a detailed confession and sign it. That's also so disturbing. It's just, there's this implication, the whole use thing, it like implies ownership. It's just infuriating.
It's like revenge porn he's going to keep for later just in case.
I'm going to hold this over you.
I'm going to hold this against you. Yeah,
all these women that come over for brunch and they think, oh, Teresa's so beautiful. She has it together. She's so smart. Everybody loves her. She's got this husband. I can ruin all of that.
You haven't fooled me. Write this down. For sure.
Oh, man, that's just really gets my blood boiling.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, statements coming at ya, statements coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And now, an ad from Dad.
All right, save money on car insurance when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. Can I take these off? All right. What is this? This looks good. Wow, that's well made. Where did you get this? I'm talking to you with the hair. Yeah, where did you get this? It's good stuff. That's solid. That's not veneer. That's solid stuff.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, Affiliates, and other insurers. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
So several days passed, and Philip became worried because he hadn't heard from Teresa. It was really unusual. So on Sunday, February 27th, 1859, Philip decided to rent a front room in the Cosmos Club across Lafayette Park from the Sickles home. He specifically got this room so he could look out the window with his opera glasses, trying to spot Teresa.
This is so old-timey.
Love it.
It's like Mr. Peanut looking through a window.
These are the things that are perfect to visualize. I can see his costume. I can see everything. And he's just across the park with the little glasses. So Philip became impatient after waiting inside for quite a while, and he decided to start walking in Lafayette Park to get a little bit closer to the Sickles home. Philip was unaware that the affair was no longer a secret, and so he didn't know that Daniel was so angry with him. He had no idea. There was nothing that he had to be afraid of.
Why would you be afraid? Because, you know, you cheat on your wife all the time. So whatever. I don't think he's going to be that upset if he finds out. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of the opposite side of that because I think of the time, you have to know that because he feels such ownership over his wife.
Yeah. Okay.
That even if he was sleeping around, I think he would be like, but that's my wife, and that kind of bullshit.
I don't know why I just keep assuming that like this guy would reasonably be like, yeah, all right, I'm fucking others. You can do it too. Just don't tell anybody.
Right.
But this is old timey.
Yeah.
Therefore, we got to cut your leg with a sword or
Right.
hit you with a cannon for sleeping with somebody.
Yeah. I mean, it was just nothing but double standards in the most severe way. And I just don't see him seeing it as like, well, I get side pieces, so you can have them too.
You're right.
Don't think that would happen.
I agree.
But I get what you're saying. Maybe more recent, something closer to today. Maybe someone would be like, oh, hey, well, we both want to see other people. Maybe we could just do the open relationship thing and agree to just portray this happy couple in high society. I mean, I think my personal feeling is there's probably a lot of celebrities and politicians that have some sort of arrangement, right?
Yes.
So they could have been that couple if it was more recent, but there were too many societal gender norms back in the day for that to be possible, I think. So after Philip was walking near the house and really not getting any reaction from Teresa and couldn't see her, he began waving a white pocket handkerchief in hopes that she would look out the window and come out. But instead, Daniel saw the signal from his window and he just flew into a rage.
You have a mental picture of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious, right?
It's a lot of...
It's
That's
like,
the sound.
I'm going to stand on this rock and wave this pocket handkerchief, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like Daniel sees him and the anger, oh, wait a second, what? And like, it's just this whole thing is, and he's just waving a little handkerchief very delicately. Like,
Not my wife.
dressed like Colin Firth in, what is that, Pride and Prejudice?
Right?
That's what everybody looks like to me, is like Little Women and all the Pride and Prejudice Jane Austen movies.
Right.
And that's what they're discussing.
So when, of course, he just completely saw red, he decided to do something about it. And Daniel grabbed several pistols from his home and rushed into Lafayette Square, yelling, quote, "Key, you scoundrel, you have dishonored my home. You must die."
Okay.
It's not funny. It's not funny. This is a murder story, but there's something, I really need to use the word scoundrel more often. That's
Yes.
the takeaway here.
Absolutely.
And he got several pistols. It's important to point out, to me, that says a lot. He's not just arming himself. He's going for overkill. He's not going to stop until it's severe. You know what I mean?
The guns jammed a lot back then too, so he's just like, this is my insurance policy.
Yeah, that
I'm
makes sense.
killing you. This is ending today.
Yeah. But there's something about it that just
Yes.
speaks volumes that he's like so dedicated to this that he's going to grab several, probably pretty large guns.
That, again, this makes pre-planning.
Yeah, premeditation for sure. So Daniel intercepted Philip at the corner of Madison Place Northwest and Pennsylvania Ave, which is basically across the street from the White House. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, are they just saying that? Maybe it was just close, but down the street. And I looked on a map and it's right there.
That's really close.
Yeah. So Daniel approached him and pulled out a gun and shot Philip in the hand. Philip grabbed Daniel's shirt and began trying to fight him off. Daniel accidentally dropped his weapon, so he pulled out another gun. Again, he had several.
Planned ahead.
And Philip's instinct was to basically throw whatever he could at him because he had no weapons. So Philip threw his opera glasses at Daniel. It was the only thing he had. Daniel aimed again, and he shot at Philip's crotch. Philip fell to the ground, and then Daniel stood over him and shot him in the chest. Philip was kind of crawling and scampering a little bit away, tried to get behind a tree, and Daniel shot another time, but the bullet only hit the tree. Daniel aimed and fired again, and Philip staggered and fell into the gutter and stopped moving. Daniel stood over Philip, aimed at his head, but when he pulled the trigger, the gun misfired.
It's a good thing he had a few.
I mean, really, I think he anticipated he was going to get this done no matter what, which again, to me, just speaks of not insanity. I mean, he's really thinking ahead here, and he's like, I'm going to bring several guns. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get rid of this guy once and for all.
It just doesn't feel like snapped.
No.
Yeah,
it feels very deliberate.
Yeah.
So finally, after all this, multiple shots, I mean, this was going on for a minute, a bystander intervened and he pinned Daniel's arms so that he couldn't continue the violence. But Daniel wiggled free and he fled the scene, while onlookers took Philip to a nearby house to get him medical attention. Philip's injuries were too severe and the doctors were not able to save him.
This is a wild time where you can just be at your house having lunch and people just rip the door open and go, hey, we need some medical assistance.
Right.
I mean, the man's been shot a million times in the park. Wait, what? What the hell are you talking about? Get out of my house.
Yeah. I mean, it must have been that there's a doctor living like within the next block. Someone knew and it's just like, take him to so-and-so's house. Because I don't know how far the hospital was. And then you have doctors operating way differently back then.
Pouring some vodka on it.
Right.
Just rip his shirt open. I'm operating now. I
imagine that someone knocked on the door and just people were carrying his body into a doctor's house, So it's just a very gruesome scene. And I really can't believe that bystanders didn't try and take him down sooner. I don't know. That's a part of old-timey culture that I'm not really familiar with. I feel like people are a little bit more proactive. Some people might just pull out their phones and film, right? But others are like, let's stand up and protect people. I feel like my instinct is that old-timey people would just kind of let things unfold. Like, oh, well, it's between them, right?
I was watching Dateline recently, and this guy says, well, we just let them fight it out. That settles things. And I feel like it's very similar to this. Like, you just let them go into fisticuffs and they'll settle it between themselves, right? But this back then, we have duels, right?
Right.
We walk 10 feet and shoot each other. So maybe, we let them fight it out themselves. It settles things until, he's clearly shot. He's dying. He's down. Oh, we need to give him some, what's that word? Whatever, while he dies. Integrity. What is it?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. He's dying, like we can't let him just murder him, shoot him again or whatever, let me intervene now.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. But yeah, I think there is kind of an overall philosophy that some people still have that's just like, yeah, this is between these two guys. Whatever reason they have to fight, it's probably a good reason. Let them figure it out.
How many times have you seen this exact thing play out in a bar parking lot?
Right.
Let them be. Just let them be. Let them fight it out amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And then usually one's like, he slept with his wife. Oh, shit. And then, the fight starts. And then they just piss each other off and then they go drink together.
Yeah. I think it was pretty easy for people to figure out like, oh, well, they'll get to the bottom of this.
And everybody knows already that these, there's extramarital affairs everywhere here. These two are, this is the man, this is the husband. I mean, everybody knows about this already, right?
Yeah,
so maybe
because
they're
they
just
were
like
prominent
fight it out.
figures. You're right. I mean, they could have been that a few people on the street were aware of what was going on, and even if someone tried to step in, they're like, oh, they've got to settle this. It's about his wife, Teresa.
This is bigger than you know, buddy. Don't
Right.
step in. And then you just stand in the parking lot and watch them fight it out.
Yeah, we don't really know. But it is it's always upsetting to me when like no one steps in and there's clearly plenty of people around. That's always a little bit bothersome. So as Philip was passing away at the local doctor's home, Daniel was running to Attorney General Jeremiah Black's home, which was a few blocks away. And he quickly just surrendered, turned himself in, and said what happened. He was allowed to briefly visit his own home, accompanied by a constable. Then he was taken to jail, which I can't imagine them just letting anybody off the streets do that. That's clearly a political privilege, right? Everybody knows him. Let's just give him a little bit extra time to go home.
Yeah, I think so.
Once he was in jail, he was able to have visitors, and so many people came to visit him that he was allowed to use the warden's apartment to meet with his guests.
Well, he's a very important diplomat.
Whoa, like that's unbelievable to me. He also enjoyed numerous additional accommodations that his fellow inmates did not get. Daniel was allowed to keep his gun with him, and he received unlimited amount of visitors.
He had to protect himself in jail.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine even like people that are famous? Like, hey, Bill Cosby, you can have this gun. Don't worry. We know you got to protect yourself. You're important, so we'll give you a gun.
No.
That's
Not at all.
so insane to me. His visitor list included many congressmen, senators, and other leading members of Washington society. President James Buchanan even sent Daniel a personal note while he was awaiting trial.
They must have really liked this guy because I just don't know. This is a bad look.
Yeah, you just murdered someone in the middle of the street with a ton of witnesses.
Yeah.
How are all these important people not trying to distance themselves?
Maybe their wives are cheating on them too. And they're like,
Could have been
damn
me,
it,
buddy.
Daniel. Yeah.
Right.
You did what we all wanted to do. I mean,
There's part of me that really believes that's got to be a factor in it because so many people sympathized with him.
yeah.
And it's also just, that whole aspect of like ownership of women. It's like, well, if that happened, if my wife stepped down on me, they both die. I'm sure that's just a huge attitude that was pervasive. So people, I think, made a lot of excuses for him,
Yeah.
The only visitors that weren't his supporters were Teresa's mother and some of her clergymen. They told Daniel that Teresa was overcome with sorrow and having trouble with processing her grief. She was also extremely upset that he had actually taken her wedding ring when he had stopped home on his way to jail. Which to me also goes against insanity. Like he was thinking ahead, like, I'm going to take something that's important to her. It's not a snapped kind of situation. That's a very like thought out thing.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I gave you this wedding ring. I'm going to take it away.
Even if he doesn't really have that much thought behind it, it still represents the wedding ring, which you broke the wedding vows. It's all tied into the cheating, which it's all premeditated.
Yeah. But also, I wouldn't think that would match with someone that snapped.
Exactly. This is not an episode of Snapped. Sorry, folks. It's my opinion.
Sickles was charged with murder, and he hired 8 high-powered Washington attorneys to defend him, which to me just speaks of so many other high-profile cases where you just hire a whole team.
So many powdered wigs. Right in a row.
And everybody knows how those cases turn out. I mean, you hire 8 of the best attorneys in the country, you're going to get off no matter what happens. It's
And they're
so
going to refer
sad.
to you as Mr. in court instead of the accused.
Right.
Yeah.
The defendant, no. It's going to be by your name. It's going to be Mr. So-and-so.
Respectable.
Exactly. The attitude is completely different when they know you're important. So the first thing that his defense team set out to do was to influence public perception of Daniel. And this reminds me of if you watch Scandal with Kerry Washington, like it's just so much that kind of positive spin stuff. That's what the lawyers were setting out to do. Is
Control
just
the
change.
story.
Exactly. Like let's just control the narrative. His lawyers fed really scandalous, salacious details to the press to ensure that Philip and Teresa were demonized and judged very harshly by the public, while Daniel was, of course, portrayed as the hero who was just defending his family. Eventually, when the press didn't have more information coming their way from the lawyers, they wrote stories based on pure speculation. There was even a rumor circulating the media that Teresa was pregnant with Philip's child. Because of the media swaying public opinion, it took 3 days to select a jury. There were over 200 potential jurors that were excused for pro-Sickles bias.
That's a lot of people.
So many.
200?
Yep. Many potential jurors were excused for openly sympathizing with Daniel. The jurors were finally selected, and his trial began on April 4th, 1859. Daniel Sickles pleaded not guilty by reason of temporary insanity, which was, like I said, the first use of this defense in the U.S.
Surprised at the first time that they use it. It works in a way.
Yeah, you would think by so many other things, it takes a while for people to adjust to the idea of, this is a brand new concept. This is the first time it's used. It may be something that's harder for people to buy into, but not in this case, which is strange.
Yeah.
The prosecution opened by saying that Daniel desecrated the Sabbath by committing a, quote, deed of blood against an unarmed and defenseless victim. He pointed out that Daniel had taken the time to premeditate by retrieving 3 guns and pursuing an unarmed man. And of course, I think the takeaway they were hoping for there is Daniel knew that Philip wasn't carrying a gun, right? So even if he wanted to confront him and he flew into a rage, he could just leave and get into a physical fistfight, But instead, he went out there knowing that he was intending to kill him.
With 3 guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For an unarmed person.
One.
You see him, all he has is those fucking opera glasses.
Yeah.
That's it. So for him to go so far into overkill when he could have just gone out, confronted him, maybe gotten out some anger, they would have had like a fist fight, and then that's it. But he knew that he was walking out his house to kill Philip that day.
Yeah.
The prosecutor argued that Daniel's actions were deliberate and merciless and tried to show that no event or provocation before the murder could ever justify Daniel's actions. The defense set out to prove that Daniel was deeply disturbed by the news of his wife's affair when the murder occurred. The defense used biblical quotations and themes of defending morality to make it seem like Daniel was doing the right thing by taking Philip's life.
I mean, it's fine. Everything is fine, okay? Everyone calm down. I'm cheating all the time, day in and day out. I'm taking Fanny to the Queen Victoria banquet. But you and a man in the neighborhood who everyone seems to like are cheating, are sleeping together. This is a problem. Now I'm going to kill him.
Right.
I can't be wronged. Just the double standard of it. And I feel like, he probably felt like his manhood has come into question. And at this time, I mean, you can own people legally, not just your wife. We have not gone through the Civil War yet. So yeah, this is like a possession has gone against you.
Right.
How dare it? I own that. So, I mean, yeah, I guess he's not temporarily insane. He's just pissed off. He just feels slighted. That's not an excuse to kill somebody who's waving a handkerchief in a window, right? Like, stop it.
Yeah, it's so disturbing that is such a huge deal. It's like, I have to defend my honor. That's bullshit. I own my wife. That's bullshit. I can go sleep with whoever I want, but she can't. That's bullshit. There's so many elements to this, to me, that speak of it not being an insanity case. For this to be the first time that it's used, it's like, that doesn't make sense. None of these things are logical. It's so upsetting, but he's so used to getting what he wants. He's successful, he's important. Everybody is looking at him like he can do no wrong. And he knows that. So he knows he's going to get away with it. It's so infuriating. The defense lawyers described Philip as a lecher and a predator who preyed on married wives.
Introducing the Capital One Walmart Rewards Card. Earn unlimited 5% back on everything you buy at Walmart online. It's the perfect card for all your family's hints this holiday season. Like 5% back on the air fryer Grandpa told you about when he fell asleep in his chair.
They don't fry anything.
Or 5% back on the laptop your sister had carolers sing to you.
2 turtle doves and a laptop for Carrie.
The Capital One Walmart Rewards Card. Earn unlimited rewards, including 5% back at Walmart online. What's in your wallet?
Terms and exclusions apply. Capital One N.A.
At Metro, the best deal in wireless is on. Switch to Metro and get 1 full Amazon Prime membership included every month. Plus, get 2 free phones from top brands like Samsung and LG with huge HD screens. All with 2 lines for just $90. That's the best deal in wireless, only at Metro. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Requires port in of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. Limit 4 per account or household. Offer subject to change. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime has a $12.99 per month value. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Washington socialites. Victim blaming just all over the place. It's just crazy. The papers soon started saying that Daniel was a hero for, quote, saving all the ladies of Washington from this rogue named Key.
Ew.
Yeah. And it's just so upsetting because he lost his life because of this. When Teresa was doing way less, her transgressions were way less than Daniel's, but he's being demonized and he's dead. He can't defend himself. He's a victim here. And, you know, to many extents, so is she. You know, she's a prisoner in the house while her husband is just going around sleeping with anyone. And then he kills the person that she cares about. Even though it was clear that the defense planned to attack his character and victim blame, the prosecution did not seize this opportunity to point out the double standards. And that I don't understand. I don't know if it was just because society was a certain way at the time where they didn't see the double standards, you know?
Yeah.
Or if they were just strategically making the choice not to sling mud back. I don't know.
They might have been trying to like go high in their own weird way.
Yeah.
And the times, it might be both.
Yeah. It would make sense to me that they've got to have those factors in play. The prosecution never mentioned that it was well known that Daniel had carried on affairs and relationships with various women throughout their entire marriage.
And she was 15 when they met.
Right. They never pointed out any of that
He had
stuff.
a whole life before her. He was 33 years old when they got married. Like, he has done this before, and then he meets this 15-year-old kid, and then it's like, I can do whatever I want. She's 15. What's she going to do, argue?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, argue with me. Whatever. I'm going with Fanny.
She had no power in the relationship, and he could do whatever he wanted, and he did, and he hurt her. And the moment she does something to try and assert her freedom and try and do something that she wants to do because she cares about someone, then this happens. It's so sad. Instead, the prosecution focused on calling eyewitnesses who told multiple accounts of the same events the day of the murder. The defense attempted to introduce Teresa's signed written confession into evidence, but the prosecution objected. They said that it was inadmissible as both hearsay and a privileged communication between husband and wife. The judge, Judge Crawford, sustained on the common law principle that putting such a document into public record might do irreparable harm to the marriage, which seems just really strange when you think about the fact that he just murdered someone, and that's got to do irreparable harm, right?
Yeah, her talking smack or, you know, having this written thing, like, that's so much worse.
Yeah. Like, everyone on the street saw this murder, but that's not the issue. The issue that is that she's saying that she had the affair, not the fact that he killed someone.
I just think it's because it's her voice. Like, it's coming from her, a woman. So
they're just like, it doesn't really matter.
Well, remember, she thinks herself that she is wicked. She is a wicked woman, and usually wicked women do this stuff, and that's what I am, so let me just take this.
Yeah. It's just a time period where everyone's placing blame in the wrong directions.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, it didn't really matter much that the confession wasn't allowed as evidence because Daniel's lawyer released the confession in the media anyway.
Oh, okay.
They're just so low. These are just the dirtiest, skeeziest lawyers, you know? Everyone in Washington, including the jurors, read the confession in various magazines and newspapers. The defense called numerous witnesses who attested to Daniel's mental anguish leading up to the murder. Secretary of Treasury Robert Walker spoke of Daniel's agony and despair, saying, quote, "The most terrible thing I ever saw in my life. I feared if it continued, he would become permanently insane." I think that's really easy to say after the fact.
Yeah, of course. He was so upset.
During Walker's testimony, Daniel was overcome with emotion and began sobbing so much that he had to be ushered out of the courtroom to compose himself. As he was let out, many of the people in the audience shed tears for him.
I'm just, why are you crying? Like, what is the motivation to cry for this guy? I mean, I know there's no answer. I'm just saying it. But it's like, are you serious?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, this trial was so far skewed in Daniel's direction, and everybody in the public was so on his side, which now, in this day and age, it just seems so upsetting to me because he did something so horrible and so violent, and he was in the wrong the entire marriage up until the day that he did this. He had been a terrible husband. He's a shitty person, and everybody's looking at him like he's a hero and he's a victim. And then looking at Teresa, who's a victim, and at Philip, who is the ultimate person that lost his life, as though they're demonized, you know? It's so frustrating. It's unbelievable. I feel like this is the least you've ever had to say about a case ever.
Honestly, it is, because it's just so like obvious, just double standard bullshit to me that it's like, I don't even know what to say, because she is not going to get the best end out of this.
Right.
Poor Teresa. I mean, she was 15 when she gets with this guy. Probably her first boyfriend, right? Like, her life is not great. I just don't, I mean, what are we doing here? I just, you know what I mean? I feel so, this is so obvious that like, he just murdered someone because he was angry.
Right.
I do not believe the insanity plea applies here. I wanted to wait until the end to surprise you all. But I just don't think that this is an insanity plea case when you see things like last week insanity plea, right? This is the first one. It's a completely
different thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No comparison.
Not at all.
And I feel for her. But at the same time, this is a different time. So it's just all we can do is hindsight 2020. Like, this is really sad.
Yeah.
It bums me out. I think that's what it is I'm just kind of like,
just sad for her.
Yeah,
right?
no, I am. And also for Daniel, not Daniel, the other one, waving, Philip's waving his handkerchief. And like, honestly, if they had just accepted that we're together in name only, we do social things,
right.
That's about it. They could have been very ahead of the time.
Yes.
But no, we're stuck in, these are the rules. This is the way it is. Respect, honor, dignity, all this bullshit. There's obviously no ethics laws at this time, as we can see with the attorneys and stuff. But it's also skewed and just double standards everywhere. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. I'm glad this is not where you can just take someone's confession and just be like, well, I made her write this. Look what she did. Look how bad she is. She's wicked. And it's like, no, she's human.
Yeah. I think it's also upsetting because to many extents we still do this, you know? I mean, yeah. There's so many cases where we see this happen, and I get it that it's a lawyer's job to defend their client and they do shitty things, but it's better, but not that much better, you know? And it's so sad every time you see a case like this where they're in the courtroom and the people that have suffered the most are just being ripped to shreds.
And they get to sit there and watch other people cry with this guy?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
I'm sure she was in the courtroom, you know, because she has to support her husband. Even in just show, she has to support him. So she has to sit through that. where people are openly just weeping in sympathy for him.
And, even though it's old-timey, like, our emotions are still the same. Philip's family, if they were allowed, if they weren't held back or kept out of the courtroom or something, we're probably there too.
Right.
I mean, it's not like the mother instinct, parent instinct just came up, a couple weeks ago at the last murder trial, right? Like, it's always been there. They're there.
Yeah. And
Like,
they have
they're
to
upset.
sit through all of this. And they have to be at home and read it in the papers. Everywhere you turn, if you are Philip's family or if you are Teresa, you're just bombarded with horrible things
And
being said.
It's not like, this girl was 15. She has no frontal lobe cortex development, right? And she's making these decisions for the rest of her life with this 33-year-old man who knows exactly what he's doing, lying about his age. She's 7 months pregnant. Like, they did not start on the right foot. So, of course, it's not going to end well, and it's not going to,
Yeah.
He was who he was, but she was a child. So, obviously, she's perfect to drag along because he can just steer her, make her see what he wants. She's not going to argue. It's sad.
Before the jury left the courtroom for deliberation on April 26, 1859, the judge instructed all the jurors that in the eyes of the law, any delay between finding out about a spouse's infidelity and attacking someone made the killing deliberate murder, or at the very least manslaughter. But only an hour later, the jury returned with a not guilty verdict. As the verdict was read, the crowd cheered and clapped.
Gross.
The lead defense attorney even stood up and did a little dance as the crowd was clapping. Unbelievable.
It's just so terrible.
Yeah. And I know that the judge was trying to do the right thing. The judge was like, hey, I see you guys crying. I see the sympathy. I read the same newspapers. I see how this is going. But you have to remember that there was a delay. He grabbed several guns. He knew he was going to an unarmed man. All these factors you need to keep into account that there was definitely some premeditation. He didn't just snap. And they still were like, yeah, fuck it. We believe him.
He tried.
Yeah. It was a last ditch effort to be like, let's see if we can get this to be even or fair in any way. That night, Daniel had a party to celebrate the verdict, and 1,500 people attended.
And I bet he made her set that fucking party up for him.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's so good at it. You know you're good at it. If I try, I'll just mess it up. So you go ahead, Teresa.
My blood is boiling. I can't even believe that. She has to entertain all these guests after everything that's been said about her.
And be probably paraded at this party. He's probably like, well, Teresa over there.
Right.
The whole problem, because, wink, little Teresa over there. They all probably just are talking shit the whole time. I don't like this. I don't like this one.
I know. It just makes my skin crawl. It just feels awful.
I'm sweating.
After the trial, Daniel had the support of the public, and many people believed that his actions were justified. Sickles remained in Congress, and publicly he forgave Teresa. Daniel and Teresa kind of retreated out of the public eye, and they soon reconciled. Of course, the public was outraged that after all that, they got back together. There's also a little bit of debate as to whether they remained estranged or not, or if maybe they got together in one way, but he was still cheating. We don't really know.
What did people expect, though? Like, they got him off, and he still loves her, right, after all this, so of course they're going to be together. Like, it's weird to me that they expected them not to be.
Especially at this time.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you don't divorce no matter what.
No.
Yeah. Teresa never regained her social status in Washington society, and she died of tuberculosis in 1867. She was only 31 years old.
Didn't even get to experience life.
No.
Didn't get to have a second act, like a post-Daniel period, right? Oh my God, that beginning. Whoo, what a mess. 15 years old at 30. Fucking crazy, right? Now I can live with so-and-so and raise my daughter Laura and just be chill. Nope, tuberculosis is going to take you out at 31. She's not even as old as he was when he met her.
That's so tragic.
That's what, I'm bummed out.
Yeah.
And usually usually it would be something horrific. She was killed in some farm machine accident, right? No, it's just disease. Again, old-timey stuff, right?
So sad.
Bums me out.
Daniel could not get his reputation untarnished enough to get his political career back on track.
Good.
Right? He went on to be a Union major general in the Civil War. He lost a leg when a Confederate cannonball hit him during Gettysburg.
You know he tells everybody that story.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who will listen.
Walking around telling tall tales.
Limping around with his crutch, because again, this is old-timey.
Afterwards, he received the Congressional Medal of Honor. Daniel later had an affair with the deposed Queen of Spain, and he got remarried.
That's pretty cool. But, like, she clearly is questionable. She's the deposed Queen of Spain.
Yeah.
These two are perfect for each other.
He had a falling out with his daughter, Laura Sickles, who had developed a really terrible drinking problem after her mother's death, and they became estranged. He died in 1914 at the age of 94.
It's insane that he gets to live till he's 94.
Yeah, I never wish death on anyone, so I'm definitely not saying that, but there is something disturbing about the fact that she died at 31 and he died at 94. You know, if it had been the opposite way, like you said, she could have actually experienced life. After being just snatched out of her family home at 15 and having, a short few years to really experience things before all of this mess happens. And then as soon as it's over, a couple years later, she's dead.
She had all this experience now in politics and in society and stuff like that. She could have taken that and gone into her second act.
Right.
And really done probably good for others. A lot of volunteering, probably would have been a suffragette. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
All these things. And she could have really done a lot. And instead, he's just doing the same shit. Even after he gets off. He's messing around, going, telling stories, trying to be popular, trying to be important. He's a general, and then messing around with deposed queens and still remarrying other people,
right?
Cheating on them the whole time. He doesn't change, and then he gets to be 94 and fall asleep in a bed.
Yeah, he murdered someone, got away with it, didn't learn anything from that experience, and kept on doing just all the shitty things he did before that. Which, of course, when you let someone be not guilty, it seems like you're giving them a pass to do whatever they want. So it makes sense that he would be like, yeah, if I didn't get in trouble for that, I'm not going to stop being a, quote, ladies' man and going all over town, whether I have a wife or not. He didn't learn anything from it.
No.
It's so frustrating. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of cases that really get you where it's just really sad. And obviously there's things we talk about every week. Last week was a heartbreaker for me. But it's like when you look at something like this, it's just so sad on so many levels. Just thinking about what everybody was going through, not only in this case, but at society at large, what was going on.
There's another aspect to this that I'm realizing it now. It's all hitting me. I know why this is also because I'm near her age. I'm a little older than she is, but I can think about it as acts in life. And we all make mistakes, move forward, you keep going, you know what I mean? Things happen. And it's like, God, she was just getting started. That's how I feel.
Right.
Every day of my life. I'm like, oh, what am I going to start today that I've never done, right? She could just rebuild and start over. She had all the time in the world.
She never got the opportunity.
And her daughter, too, they could have just done it together, right?
Right.
They could have just lived together, done their thing, socialites, find her daughter a man, right? And then she lives with them in the little mother-in-law unit, whatever. Could have been perfect. She could have been socialite. I have big dreams for Teresa.
Yeah, you're making a movie like I was making.
Yeah, and she's
you're
wearing
playing this through.
all the Pride and Prejudice clothes still. She's a brunette in my head.
Yeah, we don't know because of Harper's.
Well, the drawing of Teresa, she had dark hair pulled back in like a chignon. So I'm thinking similarly.
Got it.
For our actress.
Yeah, it's really sad on so many levels, this case. And I mean, of course, it's historical because it was the first one. But like you said, it seems very strange that it worked the very first time on such an obvious not insanity case, you know? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. Especially maybe there just wasn't enough information about it back in the day. Maybe they didn't have the kind of research or outlook that we have today, and culture and society was different. I know that those things are factors, but it seems so obvious in today's world from what we know that anyone could buy his insanity plea for a second, you know?
If we have any listeners that are going to Washington, D.C. soon, definitely go check out Lafayette Park,
right
in the corner of whatever Northwest in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That's kind of some neat, like, true crime historical place to visit. If you're already over there, taking the kids to Williamsburg and whatnot.
And it just becomes such an, like, forgotten thing, you know?
Great for Trivial Pursuit, you're right.
Right, and there's so many people that walk by this every day. They don't know that someone was murdered in the streets.
I would bet that the house is still there with the window, and you could even see, like, where he saw him with the handkerchief
White hanky,
and stuff. That would be, ooh, exciting.
Yeah. Oh, man. This one's a doozy.
Yeah.
It's an old-timey, and it's very interesting, but, man, it's disturbing. So we've got one more insanity case for next week. So hopefully there will be no old-timey and no kids, so we can have some variety in our insanity.
We love variety here.
Yeah, because this is, I don't know, the last couple weeks have been really draining with both of these.
It's just been like, dun, dun.
Yeah, we need some really sad theme music of just like, oh man, heavy. So before we get out of here, we want to say thank you again to the people that are new on our Patreon this week. So thank you to Tanya, Jennifer, and Brittany for becoming patrons.
Thank you.
So if you want to join our Patreon, again, it's patreon.com/Murder Dictionary Podcast. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to be recording another bonus for Patreon pretty soon. Hopefully we can get it done today. If not, it'll be done pretty soon. So look out for that if you're on our Patreon, or join if you haven't.
That one's going to be good.
Yeah. This is a Courtney case. So there's going to be a lot of like arm flailing that you won't be able to see. A lot of just volume increases.
There's a SoCal connection to this one.
Yes. There's a personal connection.
Personal.
We don't want to
SoCal.
get too far into
No, you got to
it.
be on Patreon. I can't talk about this in the real world. Come on. But like Patreon, I can definitely give you a little more details on how I got the info.
Yeah, we've got some insider information about the people involved in the case, so definitely check that out. And I think that's pretty much it from us. We're going to be back next week, still on letter I in our murder dictionary with another insanity case. So you guys have a great week. Be kind to each other. Spay and neuter your pets. All that.
Don't forget to get your earthquake kit prepared.
Oh my God.
If you're in SoCal.
Court is on this earthquake thing.
If you fail to prepare to fail.
Oh my God. We got to go. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye. Hi, I'm Brianna.
And I'm Courtney.
From Crime Screen Podcast.
Where every week we talk about movies, TV shows, and docuseries based on true crimes.
We discuss all the bingeable and unforgettable true crime that we're all watching on our screens at home.
Like Making a Murderer, Mommy Dead and Dearest, or Dear Zachary.
So if you're like us and have the problem of scaring off people at parties with serial killer facts and true crime stories,
or you just try to talk about whatever you watched and get horrified looks from coworkers and even your exasperated significant other,
then we are your new friends to discuss all the true crime with.
Follow Crime Screen Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay updated.
And subscribe to Crime Screen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
is here, and Old Navy's got all the styles you need right now, with up to 50% off store-wide. Hurry in for the season's biggest trends, like Rockstar jeans and frost-free jackets on sale. Jeans start at just $18 for adults, $12 for kids. Plus, get warm and stylish outerwear for just $18 for adults, $17 for kids. Want to save even more? Redeem your Super Cash now through Sunday. Hurry in now for up to 50% off store-wide at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 10/26 through 11/3. Select styles only.
Pros like you know trusted brands have a hand in helping you nail the job. Start with Lowe's, where you'll find those brands and savings too. Stop in today and pick up a new Metabo HPT 1 3/4 inch 15-degree pneumatic roofing nailer for $20 less, now $269. And get a new DeWalt Tough Grip 52-piece steel hex shank screwdriver bit set for just $14.98, saving you $5. For even more ways Lowe's saves your business money, stop by the Pro Desk and talk to our dedicated Pro team today. Whatever you need to get the job done, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 11/6 U.S. only.